Welcome back to We Know Scripted TV, where today we know the penultimate episode of Squid Game Season 2. My name is Mike Bloom. This is the last Squid Game podcast to come out in the year. And I would say, Chappell, for lack of a better term, stick a fork in it. The year is done.
Oof, yeah. I wish there was a better term for that because this episode ended quite nasty. I was not expecting to literally stick a fork in what was going on, but yeah, I'm very excited to talk about that with you. We're one episode away from the end of this show, and Mike, I have to say, this is one of my frustrations with Netflix in the way when they do their mass drops. I know,
Hmm.
you being in the media, you talk about this as well, which is, you get these seasons of television that you wait 2 or 3 years for. And then when you finally get them, they give them all to you at once. Then you have to watch them very quickly because you don't want to be left out of the conversation. You might have to do, make articles or podcasts about them. So you get through them so quickly and then you wait and you
Yep.
don't know when the wait is going to end. You sometimes the wait never ends for some of the shows that we like, and then it's just like it feels like we wasted all of that anticipation on one moment, only for it to end. And now I'm thinking, now what do I do? So I'm going to treasure this last day before I watch episode 7 because once that's done, we'll be waiting on season 3 of Squid Game.
I mean, all the power to you to do that because we've been talking, especially the past couple episodes, about the rather merciless cliffhangers that this show leaves us on. And this is going to be a pretty big one. And look, we'll see if perhaps they save the best for last in terms of leaving us in out of the loop, I should say, with tomorrow's episode, considering that they have an entire other ass season to play now. But yeah, obviously, this is a big moment. I mean, we knew this was coming between, of course, the polarization that came with the vote. There is always a point in the Squid Game, it seems, when the tactics of these players turn from defensive to offensive, turn from, oh, I just got to stay alive, do whatever it takes, to, oh, if I kill other people, that's actually going to help my odds a lot. Of course, we saw that last year with everything that happened with some of these night skirmishes. It seems like one might be brewing now as well, but we get a little bit of a precursor to that with this bathroom brawl, where finally this feud between Thanos and MG Coin comes to a head, and specifically with a fork stuck into a head. As we really lose, with no offense to young me, I would say one of the first big characters of Squid Game season 2.
Which is crazy, right? We've made it through 6 episodes of Squid Game in a game that the odds that you're going to die are very, like, extremely high. And they've given us so many characters and only knocked a couple of them off the board that we would care about. I mean, you and I talked about it way back in, I guess, the second game. We're like, okay, they're giving us names of people, faces, stories. Eventually, we have to lose these people. And we went a very long time without actually feeling, I guess, a real big loss. Like you said, Young Me was a tough one, I guess. But I think Thanos is a lot more of a loss to me. I'm thinking, oh my god, like I wasn't rooting for him by any means, but I think the show kind of made him almost a tiny bit likable. Like his henchman, not at all. But Thanos had some redeeming qualities. He seemed really high on Minsu. He also is just batshit crazy and also
Yeah.
insane. So it's hard to carry those two things at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, the Mingle game is very fun because he quite literally kicked a guy out of his group, but then has immediate regret. And I still can't tell if it was like him coming down from the drugs and him not remembering what he did, or whether it was just a violent mood swing to be like, wait a minute, no, we took the wrong guy. What happened to my boy? So Thanos was clearly in his feels, and he certainly felt something underneath his chin by the end of this episode. But again, Chappelle, this felt inevitable, especially the second that we see X's and O's at the lines arguing against each other, and the fact that there's going to be a vote held tomorrow. Like, there's a reason why in these other reality shows, Chappelle, they immediately go into a tiebreaker vote because they know if you hold out that tension, a lot of stuff can change, and the Squid Game creators are almost counting on that happening.
Well, that and with X's and O's being divided almost equally in the game, losing somebody, to causes that are outside of the game, maybe a bathroom brawl or something like that. That does shift the numbers. We saw that it was a stalemate between the X's and O's, but now Thanos might be dead, and so if Thanos is gone, look at that. The X's have it. They do the vote next, and they might be able to get out of here. So I think that there could be more. There could be some type of violent revenge arc coming from the O's. Now they've seen Thanos and they're like, oh, we're killing people. That's on the table now. All right, let's see if we even make it to the next vote, Mike.
Well, that's the thing, is because you think about it, if you're an O, you're like low key incentivized to kill as many X's as possible,
Yeah.
because not only does that mean that you are going to win the revote the next day, but also that eliminates people. And the entire onus of the O's is to be like, oh, we could just keep doing one more game because our chances will reduce and our prize pool will increase. And we swear the next time we'll drop out. But this time, I think we can hold on. And so it is quite literally killing two birds with one stone here in trying to go after the X's. And yeah, I would imagine that if Thanos is indeed dead, this would be first blood.
Yeah, and this is tough because we're rooting for the X's, right? We want Gi-hun to get out. That's the goal here. He's like, I don't want to do this anymore. I tried to get here and stop everything. It's not working. I don't really know what his end game was. No disrespect to Thanos, but I don't really know where Gi-hun was going once he got in. But he got in and he's in over his head. People are dying around him. He's having a hard time. He's realizing he doesn't have the influence that he thought he had. And so we really need this vote to go the X's way. But now that First Blood has been drawn, if I'm the O's, I'm thinking, well, I mean, we lost Thanos, but he also was somebody I needed to compete against. So we can avenge him and then also maybe knock off two or three other people so that we can continue and then have the odds in our favor, or at least in an individual favor as we move to more games. The problem is, they still have to deal with Inho, and he's basically Batman. I wouldn't want to bother him.
Yeah, so let's talk about this, because a very, I wouldn't say different look from Inho, right? Inho in this episode certainly channeling one of the first major coming out moments from him as player 001, where he just absolutely lays into Thanos and his crony when he's the one that is barking at everyone, admonishing them for not voting X. Here we can see, again, in my opinion, shades of the guy that won the games all those years ago, considering we get this moment in Mingle. So, the entire first part of the episode is playing out in this game, and it's just like we thought, Chappell. It's very simple. They shout out a number, pick those number of people, run into a room. If you're left out, you're dead. If you do the wrong number of people, you're dead. And that one particularly ends up working out in a manner of speaking when it is Inho and it is Jung-jae. And it turns out that, they see two other people in the room that they want to get in. One guy they just kind of throw out, and there's another guy in there. And as soon as the countdown goes off, that Inho is working that loophole of, well, if there are two alive people in this room, then technically we will survive. I mean, what's even interesting before that, Chappell, is you talk about rooting for the X's, and there are X's now within the X's. It does really seem like we had an outright merge in this episode. That, of course, we had sort of our teams of 5 from the pentathlon. And when everyone was running around scrambling together, I mean, they end up forming quite literally in the first round, which is forming groups of 10, which is rather convenient. And then basically from then on out, all of our main characters are going to be allied together. They all vote X together pretty much. And it seems like they are a cohesive unit facing this revote.
And we needed that. We really did, because there was too much, crossing over to the other side. So you had to keep up with, okay, this person's over there now, this person's over here now. Now we have all our rooting interests on the same side. It's like, okay, we don't have to worry about anybody crossing over and voting against their interest, like we saw with the woman's son. His whole thing is 007. His whole thing is weird because he's like, I want to play again. But also, I almost lost my mom in Mingle. Like, I think that really sunk in for him. And so now he's done. He's like, all right, I'm good. And so he was one of the last couple of holdouts. I think for the X's, some of them already didn't really want to play, right? Yep. They were willing to go with the one more game thing because realistically, the money is going to be life-changing if they played one more game. But now they've seen people die directly in front of them. They've watched, like just several characters just wiped off the board, and they had to stare at them as they got shot down, like in cold blood. And a lot of that was they're doing, locking certain people out of the rooms, gathering in 2s and in 3s, but leaving certain people out. I think it humanized these humans to these people so much where it's like, all right, I can't do this again. I can't go one more round. Even with Young Mi, like when she got left out, I think that was another one that just hit close to home. So now all the people who were on the fence are like, nah, it's not worth it. And so I think even with Jung-jae, him having to watch as Inho just snuffs that guy right in front of him, he's like, whoa, I gotta come back to the right side because we gotta get out of here. Because at the very least, Inho is crazy and I don't want to be around him anymore.
Yeah, shouldn't we have figured the ending of the episode was coming, considering that Inho snaps someone's neck, and we'll see a character that is named after one that is known for snapping dies at the end of this?
Oh yeah, a whole different snap. But again, it was inevitable, So these things were coming, and I'm happy. I'm happy they're all on the same side. But I still have questions about Inho. Like I don't really know what he's going for now. Is he just like, all right, I've proven my point. I've proven to Gi-hun that he could not move the hearts and minds of these people. Just like with morality, like they are lost. They're degenerate gamblers, and this money is going to, supersede anything that they can do. Like I don't really know if that's what he was going for, but it seems like he's okay with voting. Now I don't know if he just mentally did the math and figured, all right, I don't really have to prove anything. He was the last person to vote coincidentally, so maybe that also plays a part in it. And then there is that moment we lost him in the mingle. He's like, oh, I can't find a room, I gotta go, and they're like, all right. And for a second, we lose sight of him, and we don't really lose sight of him that much throughout the game. And it took me back to when we lost Ilnam and after the marbles game, right, where he disappeared, and we're like, oh, the old man is dead, but we didn't see him die. So now I'm thinking, oh, did he just kind of like duck off in a corner because he couldn't get a room? It's like, all right, and they just let him. I
mean, I hope so, because the other alternative is that he like pushes 3 people out of the way and squeezes his way into a group, sort of does what MG Coin does.
Yeah, I mean, we can see that happening too, because we've seen him kill somebody to stay in the room. So I'm not putting anything past him. But again, whenever he leaves my sight, at that point, I'm kind of suspicious. I'm thinking, did they give him a pass? Did he like raise his hand like, it's me, guys? And all right, don't shoot. And then next round starts, and he's just like, whew, I'm sorry. So happy we made it through that, guys. I thought it was a little too convenient that he disappeared.
Yeah, so talk to me about your thoughts, Chappell, on your expectations on the vote, especially when we see that Inho is last. I mean, I think we're supposed to be seeing things through the eye of Jung-jae, who obviously has a very different impression of what Inho is capable of, and sees him just kind of like coldly looking down there. And when the vote was 50-49 in favor of the O's going through, I thought I would have bet 1 billion won, Chappell, that this would have been like when you're playing Blood on the Clock Tower and you are part of the evil team and like you had everyone duped the entire time and it comes down to a tie vote and it's like, ha, I officially guaranteed the game for my team by voting this way. I totally thought Inho was going to vote O, that it was going to be 41-59. It was going to be a mask off moment. And again, the show was very much leading us to believe that as well. But no, he votes X. Now, maybe that was because he knew that the carnage was about to ensue, that obviously he was the one that clocked what the final round of Mingle would be, that it would get things down to an even 100 people, knowing that the margin might be slim. Did you believe that Inho was really going to screw over the X's in this moment, or did you think he was going to stick with them with this, again, maybe trying to curry some favor after his sketchy showing?
Well, he had just done so much talking about how like, we can't try to sway the vote. It'll cause drama. People will fight, this, that, and other. So I was thinking, okay, well, it sounds kind of weird, but I think he's right. People are going to start to fight each other. There might be some violence, and we don't like that. So we can't start yelling out things. We can't start working on people because the O's are going to get hostile. They really are. And so I was with him on that. And I felt like once you start that line of thinking, for him to completely go over to the O's at that point, I think that is him drawing the line and saying like, no, we're going to finish the Squid Game. And I don't care what Gi-hun thinks about me. And I just feel like he put way too much social stock into like working on them to do something like that. So I was on the fence. I didn't think he was going to vote O. But I wouldn't have been surprised either. I was just kind of like, oh, okay, they're about to tie this up. And then we're going to get exactly what he talked about, right? We have to now lobby for votes. And this isn't going to be just, speaking to our good nature of, hey, we should do it like this. Why don't we try this? Like the people on the O side have already indicated that they're in it for the long haul.
Yeah, they're too far gone.
Yeah, I think for me, the O's would needed to lose somebody like a big name in from their side in the game, right? Like number
Yeah.
100, that former rich guy who's now down here trying to win it all. If he dies, I think people start looking like, dang, like he was one that we thought was like in it to win it. Or maybe they just look at him as a big competitor that they don't have to compete against anymore. I don't know. It just feels like that's a hard group to negotiate with. And with Inho pretty much knowing that, a tie is just as dramatic. Sometimes a tie is the best option for drama because I don't know if you saw House of Villains recently, but the tie is kind of what we do over here with the villains.
Yeah, maybe instead of offering to take people out for dinner afterwards, they should have gotten down on their knees and begged for it. Though, again, I think the O's argument is like, you're all cowards, you're trying to walk away. And really, Chappell, I know there's a lot of messages to be taken from Squid Game, but Squid Game might low-key be the best anti-gambling PSA I've ever experienced, where people say, oh no, I know when to walk away from the table. I know when I've had enough. And it's very clear, as been showcased multiple times through 2 seasons of this show, that that is never the case with these types of people. They are in insurmountable debt for a reason, which is there is just some little synapse in their brain that when they get a little bit of money, they don't think, okay, let me use that to help myself. It's, yeah, but I want more. Now that I know I can have some, now I want more of it. And it causes them to throw themselves into these games time after time, literally putting their life on the line just for the idea of getting a cattle ranch afterwards.
Which brings me to MG Coin. Because, sir, how dare you? How dare you? This man has been like longingly glancing at his baby mama and his baby from across the room in all these games. And he's looking at her. He's like, all right, let me go and make amends. And it's like they want you to think that this man really cares about this baby, right? He keeps bringing it up like, you got to take care of the baby. You need to get out of here, XYZ. Now he takes a different approach. He said, hey, Jun-hui, listen, when we get out of here, we can try to make this thing work. It's me and you, baby. You got my child. Like we're gonna take this. We're also gonna win a lot of money. So we're gonna combine our money and then we're gonna invest it. I was like, boo, boo, boo.
Don't give this pitch right now, dude. Read
Right.
the room. Read the giant dormitory room that you're in right now.
Exactly. Lie. Why can't you just lie? At least he could say, look, my dad owns a restaurant. I'll go work for him. We'll work off our debts. I can help support the baby. No, this man can't even fathom the idea of getting a real job. He's like, this isn't no, scam. This isn't like the crypto stuff. But I do have something I need to invest in. And so if we put your shares and my shares together, I think we can really do this. And then, oh yeah, you also have a child. I guess we'll raise him too. It's like he completely lost the plot and she saw straight through it. I don't know if he's 100% just trying to use her so that he can find his next big investment. But it definitely feels like there's enough ambiguity there to where I wouldn't trust it. Like even if he could care about the baby, but he does also still care about gambling and whatever that looks like. And so, yeah, you're right. If nothing will stop you from gambling, Squid Game could definitely be the thing that kind of breaks you out of that cycle.
Yeah, and it's tough because low-key Jun-hee might be like one of the most sympathetic and empathetic characters amongst a cast of like incredibly broken people. This poor girl got pregnant, got abandoned by her baby daddy, who also like scammed her and a bunch of people out of, basically their life savings with his faulty crypto tips. And so then she enters herself into these games where she is trying every single round to leave, realizing this is a bad choice, only for the majority of people, including her own baby daddy, to vote against her wishes. She is somehow surviving here by just making some fantastic allies in the process. And this guy, maybe he does make a bit of a cogent argument, which she agrees with as well, of like, yeah, sorry, Young-mi had to die, but like, did you hear that slow-mo counter? She wasn't getting here in time, and so you all would have died as well. So I'm filling in the necessary hole here. And then he decides to follow that up with like, all right, I bought you some goodwill here. And to your point, I don't think it's like a completely selfish, heel turn for this guy. I just think he is so financially motivated. I mean, again, that's what he did for a job, right? He was like the Jim Cramer of crypto. He was giving all these different tips as to what to do. So he is mad for money. And so for some reason, like, I think his brain just deflects to there, and it comes in the face of like, no, I really care about you. I'm sorry I ghosted you earlier. Now I've seen the light and I want to take care of you and our child. Also, Inho jokingly brings up a point that I do think is legitimate, Chappell, because let's say these games do continue through season 2 into season 3, will there be a certain extent as to whether the number increases by 1? I know there are many laws that can dictate at what point a fetus becomes a human, but is there a point where this baby gets a little 457 pinned on Jun-ho's belly and is counted as a player?
Well, they were talking about how close she was to giving birth. That's been a recurring theme. It's like, oh, like, no, she doesn't look like she's showing, but she's definitely like she's on the way. And so this new baby could be born. And then they look at her and they're like, well, your baby was born into the Squid Game. So, I mean, I don't know what to tell you, lady. It's going
Yeah,
to be here.
was that part of the NDA as well with the fingerprint of like any child who emerges within the Squid Game becomes immediate property of the Squid Game? Is the baby just given like a tiny little triangle mask and put to work immediately?
Well, they have to do something with the baby because I don't know. They in Squid Game season 1, they tried to make it seem like there was like some level of humanity to it, right? If you
Yeah.
quit, then the money goes to the bereaved, right? Like the money will go to the families of the people who are watched, who we watched die. This time around, it's like, nah, y'all can have the money. They're not really doing anything for anybody outside the game, but this child, both of its parents are in the game. So they don't even have anywhere to take the child. They have nowhere else to give it to. So if it's born, they just have to like, okay, I guess if you win, then we'll give you your baby back. Or they can't possibly expect for her to care for the baby while in the Squid Game. That would be insane. But they have to do something with it. Could this baby be the future front man? Could this baby, say, born into this to this fray, now be raised in it and then molded by it, and then one day be the leader of the Squid Game? Because what kind of story would you need for somebody to be like, nah, I never knew the outside world. All I've ever known is these childhood games and murder. That's it. And so that's the perfect front man for the Squid Game spinoff 25 years from now.
Yeah, exactly. You think that you were raised in the Squid Game. I was born into it. So maybe this baby will go full Bane at a certain point. I mean, it's also very interesting because, again, going back to the reality TV of it all, I don't know if you remember Chappell, but 10 years ago, there was a rather experimental show on Fox called Utopia, where the goal was to put them inside this like bubble, essentially, this like self-sustaining society, and the initial intent was for them to live there for a full year, form their own society. Spoiler alert, I think it ended up lasting maybe like a month and a half, but they put a pregnant woman in there with the sole intention of her giving birth within this realm and raising the child within it. Squid Game is finally able to make that, I suppose, reality a fiction in this regard, but we may be able to see that outcome happen depending on what may be happening within the Squid Game.
Dear God, I hope that does not happen. I mean, I want this woman to be able to have a healthy baby, so I need her to get out. I need her to get out of the Squid Game. I don't know if that's going to be possible now that chaos has ensued. Maybe chaos has ensued so much to where they have to cancel it. They're like, all right, all of y'all don't know how to act, so we're either going to kill you all or you're going home. Like,
you can cancel Squid Game. That's if Q is the front man.
Well, I think canceling Squid Game would obviously would benefit the exes, but I think it's one of those things where it's like we could kill you all. We have no issue with that, and we can roll the money over, or we could just send you home. That would piss off the O's, but the O's are coming back. They've done half the Squid Game. We know that you can vote yourself out of here and then come back. We've seen it done before.
Yep.
So yeah, for the next round, the O's are good. I think you send the exes home. Let this woman have her baby. That's just me having wishful thinking. I really don't think it's happening. I actually kind of thought maybe we were going to find our way, I don't know, Mike, down a hatch to stop the Squid Game in this episode. But we got a smoke monster instead. Mike, I know you screamed.
I mean, listen, there's that, again, much like with these degenerate gamblers, there's that little lost synapse in me that just did that Leo pointing at the screen. As soon as Jun-ho's flying a drone over one of the many mystery islands and finds these double doors sticking out of the ground, though, to spoil Lost a little bit, it is less so like the Swan, and it is more so like the season 2 finale when Saeed and Jin and Sun, 2 other Koreans actually on TV, end up sailing around the island to be like, aha, here's the village where the others were, and it all turned out to just be like a literal cardboard painted set, and it was a mirage the entire time. It's a booby trap. Jun-ho continues to get caught with his pants down. I'm still making major side eye at this captain, considering that he was really pushing the, well, let's just go home button towards the end of this episode.
You can't trust him. He's been asking way too many questions, sir. Just drive the boat. That's all you have to do. You don't need to know the ins and outs of the operation. He's clearly signed up for this knowing very little from our point of view. So I'm thinking, well, why would you do this? What do you owe this man to where you're just willing to go on this dummy mission with him forever unless you're sabotaging it? It's like, oh, look, a hatch. You should definitely try that hatch. I think that's exactly where you need to go. They try the hatch, like, damn, well, that didn't work. Well, I guess we can call it quits. Everybody go home now. It just feels like he's there to like as misdirection, and I don't know if it's ever going to lead to anything until they shake him. Now, I will say this: to me, it's becoming way more obvious that there's more that meets the eye when it comes to him. So it's like maybe in the next episode he will finally understand, like, nah, something's wrong with the captain. We should leave him behind. Like in this episode, they say no more cell phones, no outside communication. I'm thinking the call is coming from inside the house or at least on top of the boat. Get rid of him.
That's the problem. Yeah, it's like if you're trying to sniff out sabotage, you're thinking, well, clearly someone's trying to leak something to the outside. More so, the boat's a little leaky at this point. And I don't mean literally that there is someone. Now, it'd be odd if they did dispose of him right here, right now, because I don't know, is Woo-suk going to drive the boat? Like, that's the tough thing, is that this guy leaves them in a precarious position where he is the only one that can be the difference between them getting back home and them getting stranded on their own island. So if and when Jun-ho does find out, because I do agree it's going to be a when. I think it just depends on, like, is this going to be one of our big reveals next episode? Is it going to be more so like a season 3 thing? I'm not entirely sure, but I will say, the value of this, the stock MG coin style of this storyline, it's kind of started to plummet a little bit, in my opinion, considering that if we are indeed proven correct at some point that the captain is a mole, is a saboteur, then, like, if that was the value of the Jun-ho storyline, it didn't bring much for the past few episodes when we keep stopping in on it.
Right. They have to make it matter, and if it turns out that it's like, oh no, it was all just some misdirection. It was all just this like wild goose chase. I'll never help you find the island. And that's it. We just wasted all this time with Jun-ho. The entire season has just been us checking in with him for nothing. But if he finds the island or finds, where Squid Game is being held, and maybe Squid Game has already ended, like, oh yeah, by the time the captain finished, spinning him around, they got there and the votes have been counted. We've already sent the people home. There's nobody here. He just walks into the big empty room and all he sees is Sarah Beth. Like I feel like there might be something there, but you're right. They've drawn this out for 6 episodes. And we are 1 episode away from the finale. They have to do something with this storyline, or I'm going to stop caring and care more about, okay, well, if they're not able to get the votes for the exes, what does it look like if we play the Squid Game out? Does it end up being Gi-hun and the front man as the last 2 people playing the Squid Game? I honestly wouldn't hate it. I would hate the odds for Gi-hun. We've seen the front man fight.
Yeah. And to be fair, Gi-hun didn't necessarily win last time. Is more so he kind of, won by default, in that the guy who lost ended up finishing himself off at the end.
Right. So it's like, could he even beat him in a one-on-one? Is the final game the Squid Game, or is it a different game? I hear people like call this show Squid Games, but the show was named after that one game, Squid Game. So that's not to say that this all is like you're back in the Squid Games. It's like, no, this is more like you're back in somebody's hell house, and the last game was Squid Game. We don't know what the last game is going to be this time. It might not even be Squid Game. We've only seen one game repeated since episode. Well, I mean, since the season started. Yeah. So I'm interested to see what happens if the O's take it, and he's forced to play it all out.
Let's do one more stop in here with Noel and the behind the scenes aspect of things, but not a lot of airtime for her in this episode. Seems like she really did take that warning to heart. She does not want multiple cuts on her face and worse. And so when there's a guy who's left alive at the end of Mingle, she decides, let their organs be harvested. She's playing the long game here. Do you think she's playing the long game, Chappell? Is this the end of the storyline, that she's just going to kind of lie and let these actions happen, or do you think she's waiting for her opportune moment to really blow shit up?
This is another storyline that I feel like is okay. We've kind of reached the point where you
Yeah.
gotta do something, right? When it was like, oh yeah, she's rogue. I said bet. Then it's like, oh yeah, she's been threatened, but she's not gonna let that stop her. She did. She let that stop her. So now I'm thinking, well, why do we follow you if that's all it took was just a mild threat or some face mutilation, to make you stop what you were doing, to make you abandon your mission of I don't really know what her mission is. Again, euthanizing these people, so that their organs aren't harvested. She doesn't really have a storyline if she's not stopping them. So I want to know what that looks like. Is she going to regroup? Does she actually end up meeting our main characters from the Squid Game somehow? Maybe she, once it's all said and done, they do the vote, they send her home, and she runs into some of the other characters. Maybe that's a way that she gets into the game because we've been following her almost like a parallel storyline that has nothing to do with what they're doing. The Squid Game could continue or end, and she's still here as a worker, but she's never been involved in anything having to do with the main plot. So they have to bring her in somehow because the harvesting thing just isn't big enough for me to say that that's a reason why we should be following this character. We don't really have any stock into the harvesting part. We only care about are they able to get to the front man or are they able to finish Squid Game? Like those are the two like aspects we're looking at through. She's on a weird side mission that I'm starting to stop caring about for sure.
Maybe the interesting part will come with player 246, which, for those of you remember, is the caricature artist, the father of this little girl that Noel had bonded with before she ended up going to work, in a manner of speaking. Maybe it's something where, like, during the next game, if the vote carries through, he gets, like, grievously wounded. And so now it's up to her to be like, okay, would I rather kill him immediately, or do I let his organs be harvested, which is almost like a much more painful way of dying? And so maybe that's going to be like the moral quandary she's eventually put into of, okay, I know there's going to be a lot of consequences on me for doing this, both, you know, employee wise as well as cosmetic wise. But at the same time, this is clearly a guy that I have a surprising amount of emotional stock in. Is he going to be the exception to the rule?
Even the fact that he's still here, we
Yeah.
never check in with 246. We just
No.
see him
Well,
randomly.
now he's sort of being protected by our main characters. He ended up getting just sort of pulled into the mingle stuff at the last second since they ditched the shaman of the sea.
Yeah, and that lady can go. I hate her so much. She was growing on me, but now I'm like, all right, you're doing too much, shaman. But 246 is just here. We have no backstory over him except for what we've seen through the eyes of our 011 Noel. And so I'm waiting on them to figure out a way to pull her into his storyline more because right now she's kind of like his guardian angel, right? Like she's there, but she's not. We don't have any indication that she would save his life. We just have indication that she wouldn't let his organs get harvested, right? Like I don't know if she has a connection with him enough to where if his name ever comes up on the hit list, she would be like, all right, I'm gonna let you go. Like it really feels like it's still moving almost tangentially to his storyline where I'm trying to figure out how they're gonna bring her into the mix. Does her saving him or not allowing his organs to get harvested, does that somehow bring her to the front man? Is she somehow going to be interacting with Gi-hun? It feels like they have to end the Squid Game where she's always going to be on the other side of this wall. Like there's no world where this lady takes off her red jumpsuit and tries to save this man. She barely knows him. She's been killing all these other people in cold blood without even flinching for the most part. So I just want to know how we're going to take her, use him, and bring her to the rest of the group because at some point she has to do something or I'm just going to be waiting for them to get rid of her too.
All right, Chappell, we talked about this at the very beginning. First Blood has been drawn with some of our big named characters. Young Me ends up being a casualty of Mingle, but Thanos is obviously the big one. And obviously a bit of a boiling point between their dynamic as well. Though you could also argue that there was a chance that MG Coin would have died had he not stabbed this guy. And I don't know if MG Coin is going to be able to explain that to these irascible O's, especially considering that they're all fighting each other. But it might have been argued out of self-defense or anything. So I guess the question is, has Pandora's box been opened here? Give me, if there are any named characters that you think will be killed in the finale of Squid Game Season 2.
I'm concerned about Minsu. Minsu has just been kind of like getting bullied by Thanos and his backup. I just hate that man so much. His crony. What is his name?
So his name, I believe, is Nam Gyu, though
Nam
again,
Gyu, yeah.
Thanos kept getting his name wrong.
Right, and that's probably why I don't know his name. Namgyu sucks. He's the worst. But they give us so much Minsu. Every episode is like Minsu's being bullied. Minsu's switching side. So Minsu switching side is also a part of the reason why the numbers are the way they were. Like this
Right.
tie that we end up getting. So I could see him being a casualty just because they've been dragging him along for this, for all of this. I also think there's a few other characters who just they kind of just pop up randomly. You know, we make eye contact with them a few times, but we never really get enough story from them to where if it happened, I wouldn't be shocked. But Mike, I have a question about the murder itself. This weapon, the fork, is that is that odd? Because they really we see that Gi-hun opens his foil and he looks at the fork like, oh my god, like it was some like foreshadowing going with just the way he looked at the fork. And I'm thinking, had they not been given sharp objects before? Why was this such a moment? Because it felt like he saw the fork and the first thing that came to his mind was people gonna start poking people up. And then we
Well,
saw it
yeah.
happen almost instantly.
Well, remember that the way his Squid Game ended was that the final three sat down to this delicious steak dinner and everyone left the knives behind, basically saying, okay, you know what to do from here. Pick
Yeah.
it up and take it where it's supposed to go in its final resting place, which is probably somebody else's body. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised that Gi-hun noticed that after, honestly, for me, the bigger red flag were the glass bottles. Because that was the entire thing from last season, right? Was that
Mm-hmm.
Doksu, got in this like shoving match with this guy, a bottle broke, and he happened to use it to shank somebody and kill them. And that's when it really sprung upon him and his cronies to be like, oh, we could just kill people ourselves to better our chances. We don't need to wait for the round to begin. And so, eventually Gi-hun does come to this point. I guess my assumption is the stuff they had been given previously, I mean, they're able to use chopsticks, they're probably able to use other instruments, just nothing that presented with a blade or any sort of sharpness the way that the fork does.
But there's multiple forks out here now, right? Because
Yeah.
yeah, we see Thanos getting poked up, but we saw that Gi-hun had a fork too. Who's planting the forks? Who is the person that's now backstage like, nah, keep the party going. Let them fight. Let them fight. Because the front man is with us. So he's not making the decisions. I want to know who's in charge. Who's the lieutenant to the front man who is pulling these strings? Because if Inho is in the Squid Game with us, and also trying to stop the fighting, essentially, why would somebody be planting sharp objects for the prisoners to start shanking each other?
It's a good question because, to your point, is it that Inho basically said run everything on autopilot, business as usual? I guess the best guess as to who is sort of the VP that has stepped into the Oval Office right now is probably this masked manager that Noel has kind of been
Mhm.
like brushing up against, which is tough for that organ trading market because it's like, oh yeah, you can't really go to anybody at this point because the one at the very top of the pecking order is the one that is sanctioning the entire behavior. So maybe he's the one that's carrying out. Though again, it does kind of feel, to the point about Gi-hun finding the fork, kind of business as usual, right? Like if there was any time to drop a possible weapon in the middle of these players, it would be the night of this incredibly tense tied vote where every single person matters. So this does feel a little premeditated to me, just like, again, that they purposely ended Mingle with 100 players
Mhm.
because they knew that they assumed, given their general understanding of human behavior, things would go a certain way. And so to that point, we'll see. We'll probably get much like season one, like eventually the employees will be like, all right, let's step in here, fire machine guns in the air, everybody be quiet. Now you can't kill each other and await the next game. But this does feel like all is going according to plan for Inho, in which case he must really trust in his skills. Though I was worried, Chappell, and again, this was me really drinking the Kool-Aid of Inho swapping sides. When he's like, no, Gi-hun, we don't need to try the diplomatic approach. We only need to bring 6 people over. I thought, well, you could either bring 6 people over, or
Mhm.
6 people might just not be around anymore to cast the
Yeah.
vote. That's also another way to possibly nullify the other side.
Yeah, well, we lost one from the O's for sure, and I'm sure there will be ramifications from that because Thanos was such a big personality. He had a crew, and so they're gonna want to avenge him. But also, it's just very tense right now. We can't even have cordial conversation amongst the sides anymore. Because like, hey, if y'all all quit, I'll buy you dinner. Like steaks on me, and they're like, yay! Like, boo, boo, you suck. It's like I'm like, okay, there's no negotiating with the other side. You got to start killing each other. The problem is now there's weapons out there, and the weapons have fallen in the hands of the X's, it seems, because Gi-hun got one, and so the MG coin, and they were on the same side. I wonder how many of these forks are floating around, and if they're just gonna let it turn out into an all around knife fight, or is this just one of those things where Gi-hun's gonna keep his fork, and this other fork is going to go get is going to end up contraband.
That's interesting. Yeah, maybe it's an idea of like, we're not giving everyone a fork, but we've planted 10 forks amongst all 100 meals, and we'll see how things shake out.
Yeah, let's just see what happens. Let's just sprinkle some chaos into the crowd and see.
Yeah, something like Willy Wonka would definitely approve of this golden ticket measure.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really talk about this as a social experiment, but it very much can be just like an experiment on human behavior, because we talk about it almost as like they're exploiting these people's greed, right? And like, okay, you're this greedy, you have this much of a gambling addiction. We're gonna punish you basically by giving you the chance to win this money. We know you won't be able to resist it, but also you could die, and it proves a point. But people are watching it, right? As a like, this is a game for people who are putting money in, they're betting on these players. We know that to be true, but from a social like standpoint, just watching these people interact, someone's making the documentary right now. It's like, okay, and then we sprinkle 10 forks out there, and let's just stand back. They got the cameras going. They got more cameras than Beast Game, I think. I don't know, but I think that there's something to say about just being able to change tiny little bits of what we know the Squid Game to be, and then see what happens when it comes to the voting or their interaction with each other. Because the next game could very much be pitting them against each other, like in the tug of war, or even with the marbles. That could completely just determine how people pick their teams next, if they make it that far.
Well, that's the thing, is that even if you look at the structure of Squid Game Season 1, again, a lot of self-preservation in the first couple of games, where it was red light, green light, where it was the Dalgona, and then it got into tug of war, and it got into marbles, where then the mood suddenly shifted to, okay, now you have to firsthand eliminate your competition. We're not doing it for you. You're the ones that are pulling people to their death. You're the one that is like getting blood on your hands by taking these other person's marbles. And so I would imagine the games might reflect that as well, but we shall see. We'll see what's in store with tomorrow's episode as to what this long bloody night might end up meaning, if we're going to get another game, how much of a cliffhanger we are going to end on, and then of course checking in with these two other major storylines that we've been talking about with Jun-ho and with Noel, to find out what exactly the landing spot of that might be, as we, to your point, wait only a little while, certainly by comparison between seasons 1 and 2, but still have a bit of a hiatus between seasons 2 and 3. It'll be our first episode of 2025, probably our first podcast of 2025 between the two of us, but certainly a great way to start the year. Chappell, anything else you want to say about the penultimate episode? You want to send off Thanos properly?
Oh yeah. Everybody snap their fingers. Give him a good old snap. He's on the way out.
Snaps.
Yeah. Snaps for Thanos. He was fun while he lasted, but he is gone. It's very weird because there are other characters I would like to see die first. Crazy for me to believe that, because I wanted this man dead from the moment I saw him on this show. So I'm very excited to see what happens in the next episode. Mike, I know we're talking about season 2 to season 3. But do we know that season 3 is the end of Squid Game, the franchise, or is there a possibility for a season 4?
Well, so a third and final season has been confirmed with this group. Now, look, is there a chance there could be a little bit of a Ted Lasso-esque phenomenon where maybe the creator is done with his version of it and they decide to have another showrunner step in? Surely possible. I mean, as we know throughout this show, money talks, and that carries over into the real world as well. So if there are enough eyes on it, I know that 3 tends to be the magic number for a lot of these Netflix shows in terms of seasons, but I would not be surprised whatsoever if either A, this version continues with a different showrunner, or B, yes, we have Squid Game the challenge, but like another country just outright moves ahead with doing their own adaptation of Squid Game, The Office style.
Okay, good to know, because I'm looking forward to kind of wrapping up what this is going to look like. Obviously with one more episode to go, there's only so much they can do. So I'm already like, this is the penultimate episode, but this is also the penultimate season. You know, we're gonna have the finale of Squid Game at some point in the next year or so. So I'm looking forward to it. But we got to get there first. We got to get through this last episode, and we'll be back, I guess, tomorrow with another podcast.
Yeah, so I hope everyone has a happy new year. Wake up in 2025 as we will talk about the finale, Squid Game Season 2, and all of the surprises and probably casualties that lie therein. Thank you all so much for listening. We'll be back tomorrow with episode 7 of Squid Game Season 2. Until then, everybody, take care. Bye-bye.